the place where innovative tech solutions can solve the unique problems of over 1 billion people and bring services such as financial services, education, healthcare, or labor services to the unserved and the underserved. Vani, you will be going first.
Thank you, Saritha. And it's an honor to be on this really distinguished panel. And to your question, if we just take financial services, Vijay is here on this panel. October, I think we clocked something like 4.2 billion UPI transactions amounting to over $100 billion, making it really highest ever in India, and with over 250 banks that now support UPI. Clearly, this has been a very, very rapid growth and on top of underlying digital infrastructure that was laid down, and entrepreneurs that then can really on top of that value add and growth and scaling and really create an inclusive economy, which Paytm has proven significantly over the last few years possible, right? And I think we can do this in every sector, be healthcare, education, and other areas, by thinking carefully on what is the underlying digital infrastructure we can lay, and then let the growth come. And there are many ideas around it, and probably many minds to come together to make that happen. It's very clear that we have enormous opportunity, be in education, agriculture, health, all of the core sectors for India to digital enable and provide boosters. So, just to keep it brief, in education that might allow for better certification and accreditation, which today is more private, and it needs to be have a digital infrastructure through which the government allows for it, will, I think, tilt the scales into more inclusive, affordable education and literacy, which I think in turn can have a lot of benefit from employability and filling for the global workforce. Though in health, there has been some progress, more progress than in education that way, from NDMH and so forth, much like UPI. However, unlike UPI, I think it's too complex, and it's so more about vision than execution, to be able to leverage that from private companies coming together to provide that unified medical infrastructure and consumer digital records and all of those things that can really accelerate delivering inclusive healthcare for the country. So I think when you talk about a possible and inconceivable, it's to me at least a two-part requirement. There is something we need to do as that allows for scale and solving problems at large scale for the country, and that's where the founders, entrepreneurs, and Siddharth and VSS has proven the might of what Indian entrepreneurs. And I think what the government can do is really provide ability for these companies to truly scale by providing the core, regulatory and plus private public partnerships on laying down clarity of infrastructure requirements.
Vijay, what do you think? Do you think India can marry its unique problems to innovation, and startups such as yours bring services to the unserved and the underserved?
I think, first of all, thank you so much for calling me here, Saritha and Bloomberg. I totally believe that India has unique opportunity and sort of a leapfrog opportunity, because technology changes by time faster than you can adapt that. And in a lucky manner, instead of accepting broadband led by wire and desktop, India picked up mobile. So whether you talk about mobile payments, whether you talk about mobile health, mobile education, everything added with mobile is India's opportunity. And this is the best part about India's opportunity. No global company in east or west have seen it like this, because what you are talking about is that Indian entrepreneurs and Indian problems are more of a natural match here. And that is why you see what you're talking about, that India, the opportunities for Indian entrepreneurs, and it is for us to develop very much locally made, locally built solutions, if you will. And I can also tell you that, Saritha, I fundamentally believe that India's problems or solutions to India's problems or opportunities are sort of the next wave for the world to look up to the technology. Because we are talking about mobile-led technologies, we are talking about mobile plus cloud, which internally extends towards data, AI, big data. All is more linear and organic here in this country. It is unprecedented that India finds itself at such cusp of great opportunity, great investment opportunity, great problem solving and technology opportunity, and the democratization and access of mobile phone and mobile internet is just making it incredibly possible and incredibly executable. Big opportunity. I'm big supporter of India's opportunity. I actually want to call it out that India's entrepreneurs have an opportunity to shape the world's technology landscape. And that is something which is far bigger than just looking at India.
Sid, I'd love you to take a shot at the question, please.
Saritha, again, thank you to you and Bloomberg for having me on this distinguished panel. Look, I think I'll just build on what Vijay said, right? As entrepreneurs, we are all extremely long India. We are big believers in what has happened over the last decade. And if that is anything to go by, the next several decades are going to be just outstanding in terms of what we can do and what we can achieve, right? Let's take the same example of financial services like which I was giving. The world moved from cash to check, check to card, and card to digital. If you look at the last 1 decade, we've directly moved from cash to digital, right? And we are at volumes which is just phenomenal. The approach that we have of creating a shared infrastructure, and on that infrastructure, private players driving innovation, so that there is last mile availability and last mile connectivity. These are all very uniquely Indian solutions to Indian problems. And I think, as VSS said, these are not copied from either East or West. I think there will come a time, and you're already seeing that through SaaS companies, where Indian solutions will be accepted globally, right, across the field. And I think we have a physical infrastructure in our country. And, the world keeps saying that, our pace of physical infrastructure has to match with the world. I think what we have done very frugally and very phenomenally is built a layer of digital infrastructure on top of this physical infrastructure. And this digital infrastructure has provided connectivity, access, convenience in a manner that has completely changed the way this physical, interacts. And I think we will become a role model in terms of how you can use digital technology, lay it on top of physical technology, and get the best, right? You don't have to spend billions and billions of dollars, for example, in any field now to recreate that physical infrastructure. Your digital infrastructure will suddenly enhance this in terms of where it is, right? And like VSS said, there's no doubt and there's no reason why the next decades should be India's golden time.
Thank you, Siddharth. Vijay, this one is for you. India is the world's third largest startup ecosystem, but a really young startup ecosystem. It often gets compared to Silicon Valley or Shenzhen. Now, what can the government do to attract? What can government and policymakers and regulators do to attract the risk capital to match with some of these other ecosystems?
I absolutely love the comparison, first of all. I mean, some years back, we were just an IT service company, and today we are champion of startups which are building original products and products that serve not just our country, but at a scale, phenomenally global type and style of products. So, Saritha, I believe that government and regulators have to, first of all, keep the policies more stable over the period. And the best part is that the stability brings confidence, the assurity brings confidence, the predictability of what will happen in this country is one biggest and most important factor, I would say. And whenever any change comes about, whether it is a change on policy or regulation, it is the best part about, I can tell you, in India is that it is brought in with consultation process. So sort of people have a lot of understanding what is coming on. I think that is the we do very, very well. That said, I would also add to few more expectations at startup ecosystem we have. Number one, that obviously infrastructure of digital nature, which is about enabling broadband reach, enabling mobile phone reach, enabling import of devices, or for that matter, build up of devices. All these things are sort of infrastructure. And second is about on the layer on top of it are payments, information, content, IT rules, all these things that government is talking, when they are done in consultation and in partnership and collaboration with champions who are the champions of these infrastructures, they become far more conducive for a country. Here it is a little bit of surprise that happens here in India, because there are local entrepreneurs and then there are global companies that sort of want to dominate it as an international companies market in India. I have no doubt, by the way, that Indian entrepreneurs have an ability and capability to fight any global giant, gorilla, whatever they want to call them, on their own ability, capability, and solutioning. We now have the access to the all size and type of capital. And the best part I can tell you today is that earlier, from seed stage, Series A to n number of series, and then public listing and exit, everything has happened in this country. In other words, that big capital is sorted out. Now, product and idea and market serving is, anyways, entrepreneurs in India are doing very, very well. Now, what we are seeking is that government probably should help this ecosystem to get a lot more connected with their policies and systems, which is more investors ask. Whenever you are going in a private round to raise, they always say, what do you think government will do here? What do you think regulator will do here? I think government has been fundamentally very predictable and very supportive of startups in the country, and that is something they should continue to do. What I'm trying to tell you is that we have had a golden run to reach here. I want the same policy method and support continued for next 5 years more, and we will be phenomenally ahead of definitely the other ecosystems and definitely other part of the world which treat India's technology as a global built in India, serving the world technology.
Vani, you've been a venture capital for almost 2 decades in India, and I wanted to ask you, what do you think sets India's startup ecosystem and sets it apart and makes it more attractive to global investors?
Saritha, I think capital always moves where there is opportunity, right? More and more technology is allowing for capital no longer can be by geographic boundaries, and more on that another time. But I think there is going to be fundamental changes in whether you see how crypto is rapidly developing and so on and so forth. So capital will go wherever there is opportunity. And there I think we have, we are at a great advantage in India. One, because we have one of the most vibrant startup ecosystems. We have now proven to many of the skeptics and naysayers, can you really create companies of scale? And, really want to take this opportunity because I hadn't seen VSS in a while now, but to congratulate on what he has done, because, he has sort of made the world, we always look at global companies and say, they've done this, they've done this, they've done this. But he has made the world stand up and look in India's direction and, fulfill all of the promises, right, of India that way. And first of all, not only congratulations, but gratitude to you, Vijay, for what you have done, not just from a Paytm perspective, but just from the overall startup ecosystem. But I think going back to your question, where else do we see the kind of demographic dividend, the digital first opportunity that is available, the GDP growth, despite COVID and despite the setbacks of the last couple of years, India is still the bright spot in the world, right? So we have all of the gradients, for a cliche of perfect storm, and just there was always a question of Indian capital markets being strong enough to support these companies. And one of the largest IPOs in Indian history really is a tech startup right? And that's Paytm, and sitting right here, and Siddharth too, right? I mean, it would have been really unthinkable a few years ago that in a regulated market like pharmacy, you could build a private company that's worth, I don't know what it's worth now, but over 7 billion or whatever, right? And the boldness of the vision and execution. So I think the problem set that we inherit in India is unique. The opportunity to solve that is unique. And, just from central banks making money really available, I can't think of any other opportunity in India brighter than Indian opportunity today.
Siddharth, any thoughts on this? What can startups, expect from regulators or the government to make this ecosystem much more attractive?
Look, I think, again, I'll borrow something that Vijay said, right? We've had a golden run, right? If you look at how typically regulators react, by definition, innovation will precede legislation or regulation, right? Because innovation means you're doing something new. How can you have a law for something that is not yet there, right? What matters is that is innovation fostered, and then do you have the ability to allow that innovation to then scale up, right, in a manner where it is positively impacting everything and you're not taking away from anybody else. And I think the amount of freedom that Indian entrepreneurs have been given is seen by the fact that, every other week you have a unicorn being born in India. It is a testament to the fact that we now have a very phenomenal crucible for this kind of innovation to happen in our country, right? Innovation by definition, like I said, is new, right? It is wrong for entrepreneurs to expect, oh, you know what, I want a legislation or innovation. It can't be. You are doing something new, right? So I think as entrepreneurs, we have to realize the phenomenal role that is played by the society and the government at large to allow you to do this innovation in a free and fair manner, right? And I think, like Vijay said, there is no reason why Indian entrepreneurs will be behind anybody, right? And Vani also put it perfectly. Capital follows opportunity. Opportunities are abound in India. Indian entrepreneurs are at it to make the most of it and create global solutions, right? If you look at the entire framework for Digital India, for Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, Mobile, National Digital Health Mission, there is digital at the heart of every policy, right? And today, most Indian entrepreneurs are using digital tools to provide solutions to the world, right? So I think we've had a golden run, right? And I think as entrepreneurs, we must recognize and actually be grateful for this crucible of innovation that we've been provided to do, right? It's not very often that you get such kind of environment where you have the opportunity, you have the ability to innovate, you have access to capital, you have mentors, you have people to look up to, right? I mean, where else will you get this?
I would agree,
Vijay,
Saritha, and I would
Please
just
go
say
ahead.
that I started way back in 2001, and that time even angel investments used to not be there. Forget about VC investments. I mean, investors used to be called tourism investors, if you will, because they would all take a flight to land in this country. And today, starting from recruitment of fellow teammates to angel investments to different series of investments, it is phenomenal. It is extraordinarily different. I mean, practically, I can tell you that 20 years back, where we were to today, it would have never been possible to even imagine that we would be able to reach. And now there is a compounding effect because there is happening events and business opportunities and entrepreneurs here. There is more going to happen here.
Vijay,
Yeah,
let's
I think
continue
I'll
with
also
this.
sorry. Likewise, right? I mean,
Go
when I
ahead.
graduated from school, becoming an entrepreneur wasn't the coolest thing. The coolest thing was to go work for a consulting firm or a bank, right? Today, if you ask any guy, the cool thing is to become an entrepreneur, right? This is a shift in the mindset of the Indian society, where taking risk is being appreciated, risk capital is available, failing is not considered a blot on yourself or as a society, right? And I think as a society, we've evolved to reward entrepreneurs, right? And I think which is an outstanding thing which has happened over the last decade.
Yeah.
Vijay, I'd like you to answer this one, please. India has been a remarkably hot investment destination this year. Of India's 75 or so unicorns, over half of them were born this year alone. And briefly, in mid-2021, India actually overtook China in terms of, attracting capital from global investors, even as China actually got in the midst of a huge crackdown on its technology industry. But I do have to ask, are the valuations justifiable, or are we in a bubble?
Saritha, I remember 2011, this is the time I was trying to build Paytm or start Paytm in the same company that I'm in. And we were going to meet an investor. The gentleman, before a sort of a formal call, said, "Oh, we are in the midst of a bubble." And I want to remind everybody in this call, 2011, by any reference or measure, is not considered a bubble. I mean, I can tell you this. So when you are going through a journey and you are not seeing the enormous opportunity and enormous forward-looking impact, which is compoundingly becoming bigger. I really repeat this line, compoundingly becoming bigger as a network effect kick in, because some shop has a technology, other shop will have technology, because some customer is doing this, another customer will do it. I'm using this service, more number of people will use it. That compounding that happens when you don't have to incentivize the market, you don't have to pursue the market. The returns of impact of what you are building is enormously and uncalculatable in a traditional DCF method. Because the rate of growth is growing, not the growth is happening. Rate of growth is growing. And I think I can tell that in our industry, which is payment and financial services, it's phenomenally increasing. I mean, I had a call today with my team to tell exactly the same words. So, Saritha, I am not the one to judge whether it is a frothy market, heated market, or overpriced valuation. And I'm not the investor either. But I can tell you definitely one thing, that many are underestimating what India's opportunity will be. If we go by anything that happened in the United States, China, or other part of the world, including Asia, including Indonesia, so to say, India is at an opportunity which would dwarf other and many other countries' startup or technology ecosystem. Another important factor here, India has a talent that has an ability and hunger to manage global companies. Not many other countries have that. In other words, Indian companies, TAM, once they are able to capture the country's significant markets, will definitely inevitably go beyond this country. So you're talking about a TAM, you're talking about ability to execute the product, which is technology. I mean, if you throw a stone, most probably it is hitting an engineer who can program and code. Literally like that. I mean, that is the country, phenomenal size of talent, phenomenal size of opportunity, and frugality and scale. I mean, Saritha, I want to quote one more thing about the Indian opportunity, and especially for Indian startups and entrepreneurs. Look, you go on a bus stand in India, the bus does not stop where they're supposed to stop. Either will stop before or after. What does it teach us? We commonly are aware of market distractions and problems that come which we are not planned. So Indian entrepreneurs are actually superior entrepreneurs than many parts of the world, because we already handle the uncertainty as if it is a norm, not a specialty. I mean, if some rule is changing, some country is changing, something has come, oh yeah, this is supposed to happen. What do you want to question about? It is going to happen. No problem. That kind of thing. So that is the beauty about India as an entrepreneur. So I am never going to say India is overpriced, not because I'm a related party or belonging to Indian fraternity, if you will. I'm only going to say that we are underestimating the impact India will have on the global technology landscape.
Vani, in the 2000s, whilst you were building startups in the Silicon Valley, the forerunner of today's startup industry, the IT services industry, is widely believed to have thrived because the government largely kept out of the way. Do you think, given how important it is that capital comes in must similarly have a smooth passage out, do you think that there can be ease of policy or clarity in regulation, for instance, in terms of taxation, to help attract global investors to India? You've exited nearly half of the over 100 investments that you've made in India, and I think you're really well suited to answer this question.
So, money is a virtuous cycle. Sometimes the process of building a company, the emotion and the passion associated with it it's possible at times for, the startup ecosystem to disassociate, forget that money is always a virtuous cycle. What goes in through the pipe has to multiply and come out for more to go in, and then the circle can continue. Today, Indian startup ecosystem is really uniquely placed from the tailwinds that we have. Vijay talked about the strong talent pool and the young entrepreneurs that have an ingrained sense of tech innovation and the access to capital and the global liquidity that is available. So, great job, I think, in terms of easing doing business for startups. The government has worked over the last decade to really make that possible. But if you ask any investor today, getting money into the country is actually not, but getting money out is a little bit of a more difficult ball game. I think we don't always have clarity on taxation, and anytime for 7 years, there could be redressal retroactively on that. That means that the capital gets locked. And this is true for domestic or international investors. And, I think if we solve some of these fundamental problems from clarity and not being something that can be retroactive, more floodgates for global capital will happen because the exits are happening. We have been talking about that this whole evening. So I really do think that there are two things that we can do at a policy level. Today, funding a startup is not a problem. It is quite easy. But we all know startups do fail, and something we may not want to talk about. But when they do, there aren't good redressal mechanisms from how you write off. It's very difficult, long drawn, expensive process to do that. That is a hardship for any investors, angel, venture, any shareholders. I think we work on making failure not just from a societal acceptance, but from legal acceptance smoother and easier. And for M&As, as much as we are celebrating the IPO, what is Vijay or Siddharth or Falguni and others going to do? Because they have created massive platforms. They're going to acquire companies, consolidate. They're going to make the platform bigger and bigger and bigger. And that process is not as easy, not from business alignment, but from just creating, shareholder exits to be smoother. So I do think that these are two areas we really need to work on making policies friendly. And one last thing is, I think we should also think about how do we create local pools of capital. I think every country that has created policies that allow for capital multiplication within the country, I think benefits. So, we have to put into it. How can we create policies where local investors are encouraged to actively participate in the startup ecosystem, and it's beneficial for them in some way to do that, vis-a-vis foreign capital. So I think we have to build local capital ecosystems more strongly.
And we are coming to an audience poll question. The question, and Siddharth, I'd like you to pay some close attention to this because you've done everything this year that has to do with this question. Should the government and regulators get out of the way for India's tech startup ecosystem to flourish? And the options, of course, are get out of the way or stay involved. And Siddharth, the poll results will be out shortly. You've raised funding, you've acquired a company, you've now in the midst of your IPO. So I'd love you to weigh in on this question on whether the government should get out of the way, like it did largely with the IT services companies in for 2 or 3 decades, whilst these companies were growing, or should it stay involved? And I think the numbers are pretty clear here, and it seems like the audience wants government to be involved. Siddharth, I'd love you to weigh in on this result, and what is your take on this? Do you, I mean, as an entrepreneur who's done a lot of, who's raised capital, who's done an M&A, and who's in the midst of, like I said, an 850 million IPO, what do you think? Do you think regulators and policymakers should watch the ecosystem closely and stay very involved, or should they get out of the way?
I don't agree with the phrase "get out of the way." Right? If there is no regulation, you are in anarchy. Right? So law and order regulation is very important for there to be order in society. Right? The right question is, are the regulators fostering innovation, and are they moving with the times? Right? So if anybody feels get out of the way, then I strongly disagree, because it will lead to total chaos and anarchy in the world. Right? Not just here, in anything in life. If there are no rules, there is no order. If there is no order, there is anarchy. Right? So I completely disagree with the phrase that you used about get out of the way, first and foremost. Right? And I think, like I shared earlier, I think innovation is the cornerstone of progress in society. Innovation by definition happens before legislation. Regulators in India have been very proactive, and they should continue to be so, to foster innovation and provide the right kind of ring fencing. If somebody says that, hey, you know what, IPO should happen, but your DRHP should be 50 pages, it is unfair. Right? As people who are doing IPO, you are custodians of the common man's money. The common man deserves to have a regulator that will protect their money. Right? So, I mean, this is just as an example. Right? I can go on and on, but at least my view is very clear that you need the right kind of regulatory support to allow you to, like I said, again, foster innovation, provide guardrails that present that there is order in society, right? But the regulator shouldn't stifle innovation. And I think we've done the perfect job in the last whatever time, right? And the fact that Vijay, I, and all the other 75 unicorns here are living proof that we have enough regulation that fosters innovation, but at the same time, regulation that ensures that none of us are living in a society which has anarchy.
Saritha, can I add something here?
Yes, please.
No, go ahead, Vijay.
I strongly agree with what Siddharth is saying. I cannot tell you that how important it is. I mean, creating a level playing field, creating field which fosters innovation, and regulators should pay heed to what innovation is happening in the country. And I am lucky to say this, that I've seen this, that they are far ahead of even many other companies. Their ability to capture the pulse is phenomenally impeccable. I mean, phenomenally impeccable is an adjective I'm using with a clear intent here, that they have seen and understand a lot better than somebody tries to pretend what they are trying to do. I can tell you that. And I think that is an important thing, because you're talking about a market which is serving India. You're not talking about, I mean, all these companies which are IT companies were serving a market which was outside India. They were creating jobs here, but the market was outside India. And to the credit of their market, their customers are now saying, I want jobs here. I mean, the local governments there where they are serving, there is a phenomenal amount of political pressure on them, if you will. Now, if we talk about our country is an open country. Every global technology company is welcome to participate here. And that is why we have such a vibrant, not just a technology ecosystem, but a startup ecosystem and global technology ecosystem. In this scenario, you have an obligation to support what is the correct innovation and access to the market requirement for many other stakeholders and players. And you are talking about, effectively, India is an emerging ecosystem, if you will. We don't have trillion-dollar companies. I mean, how many countries have trillion-dollar companies? We don't have $100 billion companies as many, and so on and so forth. So you're talking about people who have to create information and create innovation under the biggest competitive market ever in the world. And that we are proving to be resilient and smart and smarter than many other markets. So I'm totally for it, that they should not only participate, they should champion what the change that they want to drive, and they should listen to young age innovations and so on.
Vani,
Can
please.
I also add? No, Vani, go ahead, please. I'll come after you.
No, there was something slightly different on my mind. In fact, over the last several weeks, that has been growing on this topic, Saritha. Of course, if we look at what's happening with Pandora Papers and Facebook Papers and so forth, we at India really have an opportunity to truly leapfrog and avoid some of these problems. Because as companies scale in the digital economy and results in monopolistic practices or questionable societal influences that come, whether that is all the things, right, hate speech to divisiveness to so many things that we now because there is massive amount of behavior data, emotional data, citizen information that companies will possess, and anything that is ungoverned power corrupts. We know that, which is why we did away with monarchy, right? And it's no different from large companies. They today behave like autocrats and monarchy, anything that they're answerable to, right? So I do think that we have an opportunity today to think ahead on the fundamental elections where government protects the voiceless, not just from a going public and protecting the equity shareholder, the retail shareholder, but even just from the marginalized population and what happens with privacy and data. So I do think that we have a chance, taking the Facebook example as just one example. When these companies are at 2 trillion in market cap, they're bigger than the GDP of many countries, and are earned that way, right? So regulation can also be something we think about at many aspects of technology. With the technology innovation in so many areas, we will face ethical questions, not just on privacy, data, and so forth. I think in India, we have always been a very spiritual country. We brought that to the world, right? I think we have a chance to think about how do you do this? Technology has to serve humanity at large, that's the purpose for which it exists. So how do we make sure we also shine the light, show the way from India on how do you allow technology, but in an ethical way that is inclusive of the voiceless, and that I think is also very important to think about. And that only thinking in the right framework can enable.
Thank you, Vani. Sid, you wanted to come in quickly?
No, I think I just wanted to build upon, something that Vijay was talking about, the movement of people and how it's happening globally. I think it's very simple, right? I mean, the world is asking India to allow capital to move in and out freely and goods to move in and out freely. I think it's about time India also asks the ability for people to move in and out freely from other places, right? I think our regulations are far more advanced and moving ahead. Other countries are getting more regressive, right? So movement of capital and movement of goods is what is being asked of us, right? I think, but they're all saying, right, oh, you should do jobs here, do jobs there. It's just a testament that as a country, we are doing a much better job in our regulations. We are doing a much better job in fostering, like I said, talent and allowing people to do great things.
Thank you, Sid. We do need to go to the audience questions. We have a few questions from our people who have logged into this conversation, and these are addressed to particular people. So the first question is a question to Mr. Shah. Billions of people in India and other emerging markets need, a $20 smartphone or a $100 computer or even a $2,000 electric car. Do you think that Indian startups can champion such innovation and can make this happen? Siddharth?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Why can it not happen, right? I mean, you look at the example of what Bhavish is doing at Ola Electric, right? Just as an example, I'm sure at Ather they're doing that. And, I heard a couple of days back that even Bajaj and TVS and others are doing it. Why can't there be a champion coming from India, right? And why are we just talking of, electric mobility? You look at microtransactions, right? I mean, what is the cost of UPI? It is the lowest cost payment processing exchange in the world, right? And can you imagine it's being run, and to the point of regulation, it's being run in a not-for-profit manner that is allowing yet companies like Paytm to emerge, which are worth several multiples of billions of dollars, right? Where else will you have this kind of an ecosystem, if not India, right? I mean, Vijay had made a point that we are a frugal country, right? We know how to live within our means and create innovation in a frugal manner. We don't need billions of dollars for innovation, right? And we are succeeding in spite, or I would rather say, I mean, people you say we are succeeding in spite of frugality. Tomorrow we will succeed because of our frugality, because as the world becomes more and more flat, the value of capital will be appreciated by everybody, and our frugality is going to become our reason for success.
There's an audience
Well
question
put.
for you, Vijay. You've been talking about a level playing field, for local startups. You've been competing with the likes of Amazon, Google, and Walmart in the payments space. Do you think, in your opinion, that the field can be further leveled for startups?
There is no doubt about it that there is a tremendous amount of opportunity that exists in India if you were to look at even payment space further ahead. I mean, I can tell you that when you talk about UPI, which is currently dominated by two companies, 87% market share, clearly tells that there is a lot that can be done just in case. And I can repeat it that level playing field, opportunity for younger, challenges the older and dominating to continue to innovate. I mean, it is always the case that younger, if the ecosystem blocks the younger or new, then innovation is not going to happen, because there is all kind of risk for, I mean, you can see the telecom space, you can see the payment space, you can see as many things that you want to talk about, banking space, you can see, pharmacy and so on and so forth. Tons of ecosystem that we are talking about, education, as you can see, because it allows newer, younger companies to take a full chance, is the reason there will be innovation of new, unique ways to serve the market. And there is never a market that cannot have more innovation.
Vani, this question is for you, and it's not from the audience, but it's actually from me. Just as in the Silicon Valley or China, India has got a chance to build a very inclusive, because India's startup ecosystem is very young. India has a chance to build a very inclusive, very diverse startup industry where women are represented equally in all rungs, whether as founders or venture capitalists or startup management rungs. Can diversity happen and help set India apart from other global startup ecosystems?
By diversity, do you mean in the context of how women are included? What do you mean by diversity?
Well,
Saritha?
not just gender, but also, go ahead.
I was saying by diversity meaning inviting some whites in our ecosystem. Because in the other part of the world, inviting us is called diversity. We need to build diversity by inviting them in our system. So as far as the gender diversity or inclusion diversity is concerned, we are all game. We are the champions. I mean, you're asking Vani, and I can tell you from outside, beyond the investor, beyond the founder stage, talk about the young companies in India. I mean, India's ecosystem is built on diversity of people, type, and gender, money, scale, language. I mean, I'm an example, like a lot of people quoted that you did not know the language. So, I mean, India is a diversity paradise in the world. We are a European Union. We are not a one country and so on. So you're talking about federal and unionism in a different way? Yes, we are not one of a kind. We are all of a kind.
Saritha, let me take this question from one narrow angle, which also is something over the last couple of years, in fact, has been a bit under my skin, and I've been thinking about it. So I will take first, what a moment for us to congratulate Falguni on the Nika's blockbuster IPO at, my God, 13 billion, right? It's a landmark moment for Indian startup. She's the first female unicorn in the 75 unicorns that we talked about, and to go public, right? But while we congratulate ourselves on all the things that we are doing wonderful, it's also important to take a moment on what we need to improve. And then we had done a lot of research just because so many people would come and ask me, and it was a question that kept getting asked. And are not enough women getting funded? And when we did the research, just the numbers, right? Where a woman is a CEO, just talking about the startup ecosystem, 2% of the total funding has gone to women-led companies, okay, in the startup ecosystem. I mean, so there is something there. The math should make us think. And as I thought more about it, I felt that there is a bias to fund female founders. I think that's, to me at least, truth from my observations and experience. And what we must do is create awareness and focus. And sometimes that is probably all that it takes, because answers emerge when you ask the right questions. And so, such as whether it's VSS, Siddharth, Falguni, and others, they are at a place where they can make a pact as leaders to say, we'll do everything in our power to shift policies within our own companies for more inclusion and equitability, and really address what is the root cause. Why do we not have enough women on the board, or why do we not have in our CXO suite, which I'm sure they don't, right? The question is about why. And we do from enabling practices to ease that, right? And if all of us did our small part, a few years from now, we will be looking here and you will be asking this question, celebratory perspective. And, I recently launched, and this, something called the CXXO initiative, the XX chromosome, just trying to be cute, on the CXO versus CXXO. And we set aside a dedicated fund, and we said we will fund female founder CEOs, at least give them seed and Series A, because that's who we are. We are a small firm and we have small amount of capital. But we found that whether it is access to capital or access to networks from a perspective, and access to the right kind of coaching, which happens by osmosis, there is a slight disadvantage. And I think we should work towards how can we be thoughtful on that. So I don't think there is a panacea or one answer to, but I think always being able to call out the elephant in the room and actually can create innovative solutions. And it's not just innovation at education, health tech, financial services, and so forth. When there is a complex problem, it is going to take many people coming together to solve it. Being the optimist, otherwise I couldn't do my job, then I really, really believe that India, is a very progressive society, and I'm an example. My parents were progressive in so many ways that I look back and say, how was that possible for them to think that way? I think we are a progressive society, and we are an inclusive society. And wherever I think there are hurdles, if right people, and we have the right people here right now in this panel, put our minds together, I think we'll solve for it.
Thank you so much, Vani, for that really, thoughtful answer. Vijay, Vani, and Sid, it's been a great pleasure. I could go on for hours like this, but we, unfortunately have to bring this fantastic discussion to a close. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, and I look forward to catching up with you again. Bye-bye.
Saritha, thank you. You have